NFL free agency is officially underway, and with that, the Eagles got some insane updates that changed things significantly, as the Birds just lost multiple key players to other teams, including a few starters and a guy who many Eagles fans were hoping would be re-signed. So, in this video today, I'm going to break down all these big moves and changes, as well as touch on what they mean moving forward. Plus, we'll talk about some of the other moves going on around the NFL and how they affect the Eagles, as well as what Saquon Barkley said in his press conference today. And we're going to get started right now. Alright guys, so NFL free agency is officially here, as 12 p.m. today marked the start of the legal tampering period, meaning teams could finally start negotiating with players' agents, at least legally, because I mean, we already know that goes on illegally anyway, but of course, that also means we have a lot of players already unofficially signing with teams, so the madness has already begun. And for the Eagles, not only were we waiting to see what was going to happen with all their free agents, including guys like Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, Mekhi Becton, Isaiah Rodgers, Oren Burks, Kenneth Gainwell, and many more, but we were also anticipating who the Eagles may sign next. So we got some news on that, and don't worry, we're going to get into all of it. But first, I actually want to rewind to yesterday because a lot of the madness had already begun before free agency even started. I mean, especially later in the day, we had moves being made left and right, many of which affect the Eagles. I mean, we had Myles Garrett agreeing to his new massive 4-year, $40 million a year contract extension, which I talked about in my last video, meaning that the Birds offseason pipe dream of landing the superstar edge rusher in a trade is officially dead. And then you also had other crazy deals happening, like the Seahawks blowing it up and trading Geno Smith on Saturday to the Raiders before turning around on Sunday and granting DK Metcalf's trade request by sending him to the Steelers. And that wasn't the only crazy wide receiver deal on Sunday night, as Davante Adams signed a 2-year, $45 million deal with the Rams, meaning that the team that came closest to beating the Birds in the playoffs now has a new, albeit aging, star wide receiver. And then on top of that, there were also players being released, while many were also signed to big extensions, and that includes the Bills' reigning MVP quarterback Josh Allen, who agreed to a 6-year, $330 million extension with Buffalo, which is notable because that'll likely affect what Jalen Hurts ends up getting whenever the Eagles decide to redo his contract, which, who knows, that could be pretty soon. And then on top of all that, another move from yesterday that's pretty notable for the Eagles is the Patriots signing recently released Titans edge rusher Harold Landry to a 3-year, $43 million deal, meaning that he will reunite with his former head coach Mike Vrabel in New England. And again, this move is notable for the Eagles because Landry's somebody who many, including myself, speculated could have been a potential free agent target to address the edge rusher position, considering that he's put up good sack numbers the last 3 years that he's played, plus he's a really good run defender off the edge. However, as I went into in my last video, there were also many drawbacks with Landry, one of which was that he was likely going to be far too expensive for the Eagles to get, and that turned out to be the case, as $16 million a year definitely falls outside the Eagles' price range, especially for a guy with as many concerns as Landry, so he's off the market, meaning the Eagles are going to have to pivot elsewhere at the edge rusher position. And in addition to that, there had also been a lot of buzz, especially over the weekend, that the Eagles could look to pivot at the tight end position as well, specifically by trading Dallas Goedert, who is of course going into the last year of his deal with no guaranteed money left on his contract. And on Sunday, NFL insider Josina Anderson put out a tweet saying, quote, "There are league sources who believe the Eagles are holding out hope for at least a 4th-round pick for tight end Dallas Goedert in a potential trade, even if said pick was from later years like 2026 or 2027. However, a lower pick and more of a salary adjustment is needed for some teams to continue conversation." So that's certainly very interesting. That said, just how true is this? Because the issue with trading Goedert, as Anthony DeBona pointed out, is that trading him prior to June 1st means having to eat $11 million in dead cap for this offseason, and even trading him after June 1st means they would eat $5 million in dead cap this offseason and nearly $6 million in dead cap next offseason. Plus, they just don't have a clear-cut replacement already lined up if they were to move off of Goedert. Now, Grant Calcaterra is a solid receiving tight end, but his blocking ability is subpar, he has injury concerns, and he's also going into the last year of his contract as well, so I don't think he's the answer. And then obviously, they could draft somebody, which I think they will, but that's also a huge unknown too. Now, in Josina Anderson's tweet, she says some interested teams would like the Eagles to rework Goedert's contract first, so maybe doing that could help alleviate some of the dead cap hits, but if you're going to do that, I say you might as well just restructure his contract for this year or extend him for an additional year, then you draft your tight end of the future in April and have him learn behind Goedert for a little bit before eventually taking over. Just like they did when going from Ertz to Goedert and Selleck to Ertz, but, you know, that's just my opinion and it's what makes the most sense to me. but I honestly don't know what's going to happen at this point, so we'll see, and I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on this down in the comments. But now, moving on, something else that actually took place today was a press conference for Saquon Barkley after he, of course, signed that record 2-year, $41 million contract extension last week to keep him in Philly for 4 more years, while also becoming the highest paid running back in NFL history. And in the press conference, he talked about a whole lot, which I'm not going to get into all the details, but what really stood out to me was not only the gratitude that he clearly has that he's going to be here for a long time, but also some comments that he made about what kind of legacy he wants to leave in Philly.
Does being here long-term give you the best shot to cement a really strong legacy?
100%. And that's the reason why I wanted to come here. You can't do it without everybody else. You can't do it without your teammates. And this organization knows how to continue to bring great people and have great guys in this team. And I'm just happy to be a part of it. So, yeah, the things I envision in the future, I feel like being here is the best place for it. I want to be, if not the greatest running back of all time, one of the greatest running backs of all time. And I hope I'm able to do that in the Eagle uniform.
Yeah, so I mean, you gotta love that if you're an Eagles fan. Because not only is it very clear that Barkley loves Philly and he wants to be here for the rest of his career, but he's also clearly chasing greatness, and he's certainly on the path to that after what he just did this year. So while it's not like we didn't know any of that, it's definitely awesome to just hear him say it and continue to reiterate it, and I just cannot wait to see what Barkley does this year and for years to come in Midnight Green. All that said, while Barkley's press conference was going on, we also got our first moves of NFL free agency, with the Eagles' NFC rival Tampa Bay Buccaneers being the first to strike, by not only bringing back star wide receiver Chris Godwin on a 3-year, $66 million deal, which is obviously huge for them, but also, before that, about 7 minutes into free agency to be exact, they signed pass rusher and former Eagle Haason Reddick to a 1-year, $14 million deal with $12 million guaranteed. So first off, I'm sure that deal was 100% negotiated fully legally, but that aside, I mention this because not only was there some buzz that Reddick could have possibly been an option to return to the Eagles, which, by the way, I completely botched talking about that earlier this offseason. If you know, you know, and I still frankly don't even know if that was a possibility or not, but it's ultimately not going to matter as Reddick is a Buccaneer on a deal out of the Eagles' price range. But the other reason that I bring it up is because the Bucs are the team in the NFC that the Eagles seem to have the most trouble with, and we also play them next year, so not saying Philly can't beat them by any means, but getting Godwin back and also adding Reddick continues to make them a tough opponent. Plus, on top of that, the Birds' biggest challengers in the NFC East were active early as well, as they actually just made a blockbuster trade with the Texans, sending a 2025 3rd and 7th round pick along with 2026 2nd and 4th round picks to Houston in exchange for star tackle Laremy Tunsil and a 4th round pick. And while yes, they did give up a lot to get him, he is aging, and he had a pretty bad penalty problem last season and just an overall down year, Tunsil, I can admit, is still a very good left tackle, and he definitely makes Washington's offensive line significantly better. So while it makes me feel better that they gave up a lot to get him and he is aging, I'm still not exactly thrilled about that. However, the Commanders also signed defensive tackle Javon Kinlaw to a 3-year, $45 million deal to bolster their defensive line. Now, Kinlaw is coming off a career season with the Jets where he posted career highs in most categories, including sacks with 4.5, so I wouldn't say he's a bad player per se. That said, I definitely don't think he's worth even close to $15 million a year, and the fact that Washington got rid of Jonathan Allen, who I honestly think is better at this point, and was also just being paid a little more than Kinlaw is going to make annually, is interesting to say the least. And staying with the topic of defensive tackles, it didn't take long for possibly the Eagles' top free agent to sign elsewhere, as after it was rumored that he was going to be going to the Carolina Panthers, Super Bowl 59 hero Milton Williams reportedly has signed with the New England Patriots on a massive contract that's going to pay him $26 million on average per season. So that's obviously insane. Number one, congrats to him, and he definitely deserves it. And Milt's obviously coming off a career season where he posted 5 sacks and was just an all-around really good defensive tackle, both rushing the passer and against the run. Plus, he of course had an awesome performance in the Super Bowl where he put up 2 sacks, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. So losing him definitely hurts. However, as much as it sucks, I think we all knew it was coming, as Milt was possibly the top defensive tackle on the free agent market, so it was clear he was going to get a huge payday, which the Eagles simply couldn't afford, and that is exactly what happened. Plus, on a good note, at least Milt getting paid means that the Eagles will likely get a compensatory 3rd round pick in 2026. So, again, it is definitely sad to see Milt go, but it makes sense. So, good luck to Milt in New England, and thanks for helping us win a Super Bowl. And now, the Birds are going to be relying on some other guys in that defensive tackle room to replace his production, with the primary one being the 2023 7th-round pick Moro Ojomo, and luckily, he's a guy that showed a ton of flashes this past year in a limited role, really in both pass and run situations, but especially as a pass rusher. I mean, I think he's got a lot of potential, and I definitely expect him to step up big time this year in a bigger role. And then, of course, you still got the 2022 first-round pick Jordan Davis, who's more of a prototypical run-stuffing nose tackle, but he's a guy that'll likely see the field more with Milt being gone, and he has shown some flashes of pass rushing ability as well. Overall, I'm expecting big things from both JD and Moro Ojomo this year, plus it'll be interesting to see whether the Eagles decide to add somebody else at defensive tackle as well. But now, moving on, Milton Williams isn't the only big free agent that the Birds lost today, as after reports came out saying cornerback Isaiah Rodgers was likely to have a much bigger market than initially expected in free agency, that turned out to be true, as the Vikings of all teams ended up stealing Rodgers, signing him to a 2-year deal worth $15 million with $8 million in guaranteed money. Now, as I talked about yesterday, Rodgers is obviously a good player and somebody who I wanted the Eagles to get back as a possible option to start at corner. However, with him getting as much money as he did, being $7.5 million per season, it makes sense that the Birds didn't re-sign him because A, that's kind of a lot of money for a guy who didn't even start last year, and B, it's a lot of money for a guy who wouldn't even be guaranteed to start this year. So it's sad to see Rodgers go for sure, but it is what it is, and now it's looking more and more likely that Kelee Ringo will in fact be the starter next to Quinyon Mitchell next year, especially since the Eagles just probably lost Darius Slay to the Steelers, as Jordan Schultz is reporting that Slay will sign with Pittsburgh. However, it may not be official just yet, as Tom Pelissero is saying that there's mutual interest and they are in serious talks, but the Eagles haven't officially released him yet, so a deal is not yet done, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens on that front. But regardless, it seems like Slay is going to be gone, and if this truly is it, then it's going to be tough to see him go. I mean, I'll continue to say it. As much as I know a lot of the fan base probably has mixed opinions, I love Darius Slay, and I'm super grateful for what he did for this team, being a 3-time Pro Bowler, a captain, a 2-time NFC champ, and a 1-time Super Bowl champion in his time with Philly, and I think he's easily one of the best Eagles corners of all time. So again, I got nothing but love for him. But now, the Eagles are obviously officially much thinner at corner. Ringo's likely going to start next year, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them bring in somebody in free agency or the draft. Moving on though, the Eagles didn't just lose Milt, Rodgers, and probably Slay today, they also lost Josh Sweat, as he agreed to a 4-year $76 million deal with the Arizona Cardinals that includes $41 million in guaranteed money, and Sweat will now reunite with his former defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon in Arizona. And obviously, Sweat was a great player for this Eagles defense for many years, as he spent his entire career in Philly since being drafted back in 2018, putting up 43 sacks and 97 QB hits in his 7 years with the team, while just being a really good overall edge defender. Plus, he obviously had 8 sacks this past year and an epic performance in the Super Bowl, putting up 2.5 sacks. So, like with all these guys, it really hurts to see him go, but it also makes perfect sense, as the Eagles simply could not afford to pay him what he got. So, good luck in Arizona, Josh Sweat. Thanks for helping us win a Super Bowl. And now, the Birds are going to be relying much more on Jalyx Hunt to step up and fill the void left by Sweat, which based on what he showed in his rookie season, I think he will. Plus, I also think the Eagles are likely to add an edge rusher at some point, whether it's in free agency or the draft, but we'll just have to wait and see. But even with all that crazy news, we're obviously still waiting to see what happens with the Eagles' other remaining free agents. Plus, they haven't made any signings of their own yet, so there is still plenty more to come in these coming days. So if you guys don't want to miss any of that, then make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because I want to be covering it all with videos and live streams, and you're not going to want to miss any of it. So again, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and also hit the like button as well to show some support if you did enjoy this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. Let's see if we can get to 600 likes today. And also, leave a comment down below. What do you think of the Eagles losing Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, Isaiah Rodgers, and probably Darius Slay? Give me your thoughts down in the comments below. And also, if you want to watch another Eagles video, you can check this one out right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.